Hello fellow underwater explorers, I'm Kinglink and this is my review of Soma. Now, I'm not a big fan of horror to start this off with. Actually, Amnesia the Dark Descent, also made by Frictional Games, is one of my least favorite games of all time. It's literally unplayable in every way for me. I know, it's a great game. If you love it, I understand it. But when I play it, my hands start shaking, and for my mental sanity and my health, I feel like I have to stop. But it was Joseph Anderson who actually made a critique of Soma, recommending this game, and honestly, I have not seen the full critique yet. I will link it at the end of this video as well, but because of that, I ended up trying it. And with that said, I've beat Soma. It's a great game, and I'm here to talk about it, but if you are interested, well, it's kind of like Get Out, in that the Get Out was horror, but it was really more of a thriller movie than horror, versus It, which is pure horror, of course. Now, with that out of the way, away we go. And first thing, as always, we can check out the graphics on screen. I'll be honest, I'm not a huge fan of how Soma looks. It doesn't look great, and I do appreciate the lower graphical hardware requirements. Kudos to the team for that, but the world, it doesn't have the right fidelity. It's hard to tell what things are, things blend together, and it's not the best. I like Soma in a lot of ways, but I think the graphics aren't that great. And it's not a issue of graphical power, but an art design choice. The game doesn't feel like it wants you to understand the world without being forced to stare at something for a while. I get the mentality behind it. And it's an interesting idea for a horror game. It throws the player off balance, and it's a great thought. But maybe not. I like the look of Soma in parts, but it's also kind of muddy, if I can say that. Maybe dirty. And I don't mean that the station needs a cleaning, which of course it does. I feel like the art almost needs another pass. Now that's just my opinion. You can determine it for yourself on the screen, of course. Of course, as a horror game though, Soma does use other techniques. It loves to use low light, making it hard to see, and more. And all of this does work. Horror isn't really about what you can see, but what you can't see, and there's a lot of creepiness in Soma on purpose. In fact, Soma also has this interesting screen distortion effect going on that you should be able to see now. It happens when you look at enemies, and honestly, it's really annoying and distracting. I believe this is to discourage players from looking at the enemies, all part of the unseen idea, but I don't know if it really works as intended. You can, of course, turn it off, but it's clearly there on purpose to try to drive the player not to stare at the monsters to demystify them. And I don't want to hammer Soma on graphics because it's honestly so effective at everything else, but I do think they're below where they could have been, not because of power, but because more of those stylized choices, and I don't know if I can fully agree with them. Speaking of something way above average, well, I'm going to show you the beginning of the game. Here we go. This is Simon's room and the opening of the game. I'm going to go a bit fast through here, taking a look at a bunch of things, but it's rather cool all the pieces you can interact with. The first time I did this, I was actually kind of nerve-wracked. I thought a freaking alien was going to step out and probe me, or my dead girlfriend was going to appear and eat my face. I know I've seen too much horror, but the fact is, well, this seems relatively normal. Now, here we go to an office, and again, it's also kind of normal. Now, I'm showing these scenes because, well, it was intense to me to start the game this way. It's more like the opening of a roller coaster. When the chain is pulling you up and clinking along, and you're thinking, why am I doing this, or what's going on? It's setting a stage so that you can then remove it and make the player question everything. And then suddenly your brain is scanned, and bam, here we are. Suddenly you're on this strange space station. We'll find out we're actually underwater and in the year 2103, but what's happened between these two scenes? Well, I'm actually not going to give everything away, but I want to say that Soma definitely delivers a great experience. Everything is explained in this game in some form. This is actually the opposite of Dandara, which I reviewed previously. There's a great story here, and it really delivers. I do want to talk a little bit more about the story, mostly about the theme and just pieces of it. I don't want to give too much away, I won't, and I'm avoiding the big things, but on the screen is a timestamp of the next section, the gameplay. Feel free to click that if you want to avoid any spoiler just in case. So everyone's gone? Okay. I do want to talk about the game, at least the one big theme that really resonated with me. You're pretty much in a bad place. The station is clearly going through some serious stuff, as you can see in some of these videos. And you have to figure out what's going on, what you can do, and ultimately, you're going to try to complete the last great task. Now, the big theme of Soma is transhumanism. Basically, the idea that we can copy a human into another body. Essentially, that's what's been going on the station, as well as other things. And, well, let's just say that's one of the reasons the station is where it is. Beyond that, though, there's not many people around, but there's a lot of great voice acting, both from audio logs, like this on the screen, and from a helper. Like I said, I'm not trying to give away any details here. You're going to have to play Soma for the experience of the story. And dear God, it is so freaky. I'll just say that. There are just some really epic moments in this game, and I do have my favorites. I will hold off on saying anything about them, but Soma is so good. In fact, let's bring everyone back. Hello, everyone. So I do want to say one last thing about the story. Much of my score is actually dependent on the story and how effectively it's delivered. So really, if you want to play this game, it's going to be for the story. Let's move on to the gameplay, however. Now, Soma's gameplay may be controversial, let's say, or maybe it's just my take on it. I like Soma a lot, but mentally, if I strip the monster system out of the game, which you can't actually directly fight since you don't have any weapons, similar to Frictional's other games, and the fact that they don't appear that often, you're left with, well, a walking simulator. I mean, there are minor puzzles in the game here. The game isn't really that simple, but most puzzles are finding the right computer to see, clicking the right buttons in order, or getting a number from a post-it note. There's nothing that hard here. Don't get me wrong though, Soma is really good for its story, and I do like the gameplay here. But if you want a deep engrossing game, well, XCOM, Yakuza Kiwami 2, Dandara, they're all good. Soma, on the other hand, is excellent with how it delivers a story, but it's mostly a horror stealth game, and even there, well, let's talk about those monsters. Now, we've already talked about the fact that you can't look at the monsters directly, and that's absolutely true. The screen distortion effect is just kind of bad, but the monsters are the real challenge of the game, if you will, and they aren't that challenging as long as you're not stupid and try to attack them, which, again, you don't have a weapon, so why would you? Even if you go attack them head on, well, the game's not that hard. You can actually survive 2 attacks from them. The first just makes the world go black, and you'll revive in the same location. The monster will be somewhere else. The second attack, well, here it is on the screen. You know, it's creepy, I really don't like it, but it's not really that bad. Similar to the distortion, it's more annoying than horror. The monsters are creepy though, don't get me wrong. I really don't like the monsters in Soma, and I'm not supposed to. But they don't really challenge the player rather than create this very effective sense of unease. Stuff isn't happy underwater, obviously. The biggest problem I have with the monsters is that they just attack and instantly run away. Now, health regen is relatively easy. You need to find these, well, you should see them on the screen, alien holes you stick your hand into. I mean, it sounds sexual, maybe it is, but look at the screen. I don't know what exactly is going on here, but I also have found no clue why our character did this the first time, but good for him, he figured out this path. So if you heal, you get another chance, so you're able to reset back to being able to take 2 full hits. But also the enemy leaves and seems to ignore you for a decent amount of time, and you're able to move on efficiently. Depending on where you want to go or what you want to do next, you can actually just tank a hit and move on to the next zone if you're able to. And that's actually a strategy I used more than a few times. Again, I'm not downplaying the monsters, but they're here for the horror more than a true gameplay sense. I don't like getting attacked, I don't like dying, I don't like feeling damage, but I'm more afraid of seeing them and watching them approach than feeling that they'll challenge me on some other level, if I can say that. Now, I spent half the game really worried that something was going to jump out and attack me when maybe only 3 or 4 times this actually happened to me. I think it was even less than that. The game gives you a good amount of exploration time between each monster encounter, and it's a good balance. On the other hand, if you absolutely hate what you're seeing on the screen, I've been showing the monsters here as best I can in the early game, well, you can use safe mode. In safe mode, the monsters don't attack at all. I'll try to show it here. But yeah, you're relatively safe to explore the area on your own even if there's a monster around. I personally recommend not turning this on. The game isn't that scary, and honestly, without the monsters, I think Soma loses something really important to it. But fans ask for this option, and admittedly, I get it. But I don't recommend it because it's really a walking simulator at that point. Though I will say, kudos to Frictional, they did put in something that people were asking for. 2 thumbs up. Now, the level layouts in Soma can be a little bit confusing as well, but everything is relatively limited. What you need to do usually makes a lot of sense. So, don't go looking for someone's personal effects in the kitchen if you already have access to their bedrooms, for instance, and so on. You'll be fine. I only needed to look up actually one piece of information, and it's because I didn't do something that was probably pretty obvious that I should have done. Otherwise, most of the exploration is just understanding the world and using what computers you have access to do certain tasks. And that's really Soma. You know, it's pretty good. I like Soma a lot more than I expected, especially because I hate horror games. Aliens Resurrection was a great horror game that got a 4 because, well, truthfully, I really didn't like it that much, but it's really good for horror. Soma is a horror game that I actually enjoyed. Like I said at the beginning, this is more of the thriller. Think Get Out, maybe Black Mirror in some ways. This game isn't here to make you cry for your mother. It's here to make you uneasy and worried. But it does that in such a way that you still want to know the story and push on. You still want that full experience, and as such, Soma's really good. Let me put it this way though. I don't like horror, I've made that clear, but I really enjoyed Soma. And that's why I'm giving Soma a 4.5 out of 5. I have a little pet peeve about giving 2 games the same score, especially one as high as a 4.5 back to back, but both Dandara and Soma have really earned these scores, and they're worthy of it. Honestly, if you're even slightly interested in what I've talked about with Soma, you probably should pick it up. You know, it's not that expensive, and it's a hell of a journey. And that is Soma, and really, what a game. Now, I will link Joseph Anderson's critique of Soma at the end screen if you're interested. I love hearing his take on games. It actually is a way to give back for him, like even just mentioning this game should be played. So, thanks to him. I will also warn that he does expect people to have played the game before talking about it because he goes deep into the lore, and it's always a long video, but well worth it. So long, it actually makes my videos seem quick. Now, it is Humble Monthly Bundle time still. I do have that Call of Duty Black Ops 4 video coming next. I do have a personal update that I'm working on. We'll see when I get that finalized, but we'll be back soon. And, of course, thank you for watching all or most of this video if you skipped that part. And if you want to be super awesome, consider subscribing. It really means a lot to me, and I'll continue to try to cover interesting games no matter what genre it is. If you've already subscribed, ring that bell if you want to ensure you get my content. But no matter what, thank you for being a part of the Hyrulean Knights. Until then, I'm Kinglink, and thank you for watching.